When it comes to using vintage computers, people often fall into one of two camps. Some prefer to use new products and technologies, which makes using these old computers more practical and reliable and gives them new capabilities, while others prefer to stick to original hardware because it's more nostalgic and authentic. Personally, I'm a little bit of both. When it's something that's going to be silently hidden away inside the beige box, I don't mind using new technology. But when it's something that's going to affect the sight, sound, or physical interaction with the machine, I prefer to keep it original, such as by using floppy disks. But in case you were unaware of it, new ones aren't being made anymore. The supply of newly manufactured floppy disks dried up over a decade ago, and pristine unused boxes of them are commanding increasing prices due to their scarcity. So when I come across a bargain grab bag of them, I always pick it up. I got a bag of 15 diskettes for $3.99 at the thrift store. They classified it as decor/houseware. Now these are all obviously 3.5-inch diskettes, and they're all probably high-density 1.44 megabyte floppy disks, which are the most common kind, so these are not in danger of disappearing anytime soon. But still, I couldn't resist the temptation to pick this up and take a look at what's inside. If I encounter any old obscure software on these that hasn't already been archived online, I will save a copy of it. But otherwise, I will try my best to respect the privacy of anyone who might have old personal data on these disks. So let me tear it open and see what we got. I decided to use my IBM PS2 Model 56, which is a blazing fast, clock-tripled 486 SLC3 running at 60 MHz, has a microchannel bus, and a really fast SCSI hard drive. Although in this case it's probably not the wisest choice because it has an IBM specific 2.88 megabyte floppy drive, so if I put a disk in here that totally trashes the drive heads, it's going to be hard to find and expensive to replace. Not that I want that to happen to any floppy drive, but at least if it was a standard floppy drive, it wouldn't be such a big deal. So I'll carefully inspect each disk before I stick it in. First off the pile is this CL902X utility and driver diskette number 3, copyright Cirrus Logic Incorporated 1991. So some kind of old driver disk. And it seems to be in okay condition. And it looks like that's exactly what it is, a driver disk for an old graphics card. I see dates of 1993 there. And those are obviously resolution 640 by 480, 800 by 600, and 1024 by 768. Next is the same thing, except it's diskette number 1 and has a little bit of rust on the shutter, although the media surface looks okay. And again, another graphics driver disk. This one has drivers for various applications like AutoCAD, GEM, Lotus 123, Microsoft Word, WordStar, and WordPerfect. I found an ID file on the disk. It says GD54XX display drivers release 1.30, but we don't have the complete set here because it's a set of 5 disks and I only have 3 of them. Then is diskette number 2. Also has some rust on the shutter, but again the media surface looks okay. And this one has the drivers for Windows 3.0 and 3.1 on it. Now here's a double density diskette. Notice it does not say HD in the corner, so that's a nice bonus. These are harder to find than high density diskettes. Quicken account. So it probably has somebody's personal data on it. And it has somebody's personal Quicken data from 1997 on it, so obviously I'll be erasing this disk. Another double density 720K diskette. Tammy Q5 account. So again, probably personal data. And this one has more personal Quicken data on it from 1996. Another double density diskette, but nothing on it, no label. So, I don't know, could be blank. Well, the disc had no label on it, and it indeed is blank. Well, I'm happy at the amount of double density diskettes in this package, because that's what I was really looking for, because these are getting hard to find compared to high density diskettes. This one, backup Q3 files, PR and ASB, Barcelona, something, true, April 91. So again, probably personal financial data, which I definitely will be erasing. And this one is just giving me general failure errors, so it may be a bad disk. Here's a Kodak micro diskette, also double density, Quicken 3 program. Very common piece of software, so no need to archive that. I'm sure it's already readily available online. This one has the boot files for MS-DOS 3.2 and at least part of a version of Quicken from 1989. Here's a Sony micro floppy disk, also double density. A label on top of a label and stuff crossed out. It says Quicken 2 or 3 ? So guess we'll find out. And this one is also just giving me errors. Another double density diskette, Quicken back-up. Well, this one did contain someone's personal Quicken data on it, but the file is 0 bytes, so I guess they deleted it. And here's a 3.5-inch double density diskette in a little clear plastic baggie, which is what they used to come in back in the olden days. Quicken 3. And this one is another copy of a version of Quicken from 1989, along with somebody's personal data on it. And yet again, another double density 720K diskette, which I'm really happy to be finding in this bag. Quicken 3 backup file, updated to Q5, April 1st, 92. And I think that's somebody's name. So, more personal data. And more personal Quicken data, along with the startup files for PC-DOS 3.3. Another double density diskette. Personal letters. Carry the Love of God, 1980 to 1996, Homeopathic WS. So that sounds interesting. This one has a whole bunch of somebody's personal word processing documents, probably written using Microsoft Word for DOS. So a lot of files on that disk. 80 files. Okay, this is the second to last disk, and again it is double density. HUGSR Dick Boyd. And yes, this is back when Dick was a very common nickname for Richard, so please no snickering in the back of the room. More personal Word files on this disk, and considering that there's an Excel file and the files are dated 1995 and 1996, they were probably using Word and Excel for Windows. Also on it is a copy of a program called QuickLAN, and if you wanted to buy the full version, it cost $249.95. Wow. That was by New York Software of Bath, New York. And the description says transfer between COM cables. So I guess like a lap link kind of program. Except they called it QLAN or QuickLAN. Yeah, it's using the serial port. So basically like lap link. And finally, we're down to the last diskette in the bag. This one is high density, so most of them were double density. But here's a high density one. Quicken 5.0 backup. And yep, you guessed it, more personal Quicken data from 1993. And now you may be able to tell based on how my voice has changed that during the week I've been making this video, I've come down with a rather nasty cold. Which brings to mind the fact that just as these disks may contain 30-year-old personal data, they can also contain 30-year-old computer viruses, which may still pose a threat of infecting your vintage PC. So unless you have software capable of detecting and removing vintage computer viruses, you may be better off immediately reformatting any used floppy disks you get instead of trying to snoop your way through their contents. So here's the final result of the thrift store grab bag of 15 floppy disks for $3.99. These 3 Cirrus Logic disks I'm going to keep. I'm not going to reuse them. So I'll put these in my stash of vintage PC driver disks. Even though the drivers are readily available online, it's just nice to have the original disks. Next, I got 1 high density and 8 double density disks that reformatted perfectly with no bad sectors. So that's nice. High density disks are still cheap and readily available, so that's no big deal. But like I said, these double density 720K disks are starting to get hard to find, so it's nice to end up with some more of them. And these 2 720K double density disks both had bad sectors when I tried formatting them, so I used a bulk tape eraser to completely wipe off any of the formatting on them, because sometimes that helps to sort of rejuvenate old floppy disks and get them to format correctly again. And now one of them still has bad sectors even after bulk erasing it, while the other one now formats fine. So just like in the past, I have about a 50-50 success rate at using bulk erasing to rejuvenate old floppy disks that have bad sectors. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And finally, this disk, I really wanted to save a copy of that QuickLAN program I found on it, because I wasn't able to find it anywhere online. Maybe it's buried deep in some old SimTel archive somewhere, but I wasn't able to find it. But unfortunately, on every computer I've tried it on, it gives me data errors when I try to read it. I even tried computers that have a real 720K drive instead of a high-density drive operating in 720K compatibility mode, just in case that might make a difference. But unfortunately, it still gives me data errors when I try to run or copy the program. You can try retrying, but it's just not going to work. So unfortunately, I may not be able to save a copy of this program. It doesn't matter anymore now that I reformatted it, but let's see what's hiding under this old label. Administrator number 1, administrator number 2.